Hi there, today I'm going to show you how to make these really cute Christmas light charms. They're really fun and easy to make, and there's lots you can do with them. You can add them to chain to make a charm necklace, add them to some hoops. Here's one with just a single. You can also use this as a wine charm, and here's one added just to an ear wire directly as a little dangle. You can also use them for bag charms or keychains. Lots of different possibilities. So you don't need a lot of supplies. The main thing you're going to need are these teardrop beads. These are Czech pressed glass beads, and I sell these in my shop as a mix in these 4 colors, but you can also, I also have them in white and champagne, or clear actually, and champagne if you prefer that look. You'll also need some head pins. And these are 21 gauge. So I think that's probably the best gauge wire for these. You could use 22. 24 might be getting a little too thin. So I recommend 21 gauge. And the ones I'm using are about 2¼ inches long. You definitely don't need that long. 2 inches would work. 1.75 inches might work. I think 1.5 you're getting a little too small. So to be safe, I would stick with around 2 inches or larger. And I'm just using these 2¼ because I have a lot of them. So, but if I had some 2 inches, I'd probably use those. The other thing I'm going to be using are these 3mm spacer beads by Miyuki. These are Duracoat galvanized gold and Duracoat galvanized silver. I have these in my shop as well. And those are the beads I use to make the coil on the light. And then you could use round nose pliers on this to make the loop on this charm, but I highly recommend using the one-step looper tool by the Bead Smith for this project. So if you are going to be making a lot of charms, I really highly recommend that you get this. And I use the 1.5mm loop for this project. And then also you'll need some needle nose or chain nose pliers to close the loop, since the one-step looper doesn't close it all the way. So that's all you'll need. So let's go ahead and get started. Let me move this stuff out of the way. So the first thing you'll do is you'll grab one of your head pins. I forgot to mention, I use flat head pins. So instead of the balls or domed, I think that looks best with this, but there's no right or wrong. So you'll insert the head pin into the bead, the pressed glass bead, the teardrop bead, like so, with the tapered end towards the bottom. And then you'll add 3 of the spacer beads. Now, I've done 2. You can do 2 if you prefer. I like the way the 3 looks, but again, there's no right or wrong. And then you just need to use your one-step looper to make a loop, and you then use that loop to hook onto your chain or your hoops or whatever you're going to be using it for. So you grab your one-step looper and you put the head pin underneath this pin here. So see, I'm going to go underneath that, and then there's a hole on the side, so I'm going to go out that hole. Okay. And I'm going to put my beads all the way to the edge of this piece right here. Okay, because I want it to get as tight as I can. So those spacer beads, I'm going to press all the way up against that piece right there. Okay. Now the other thing you want to make sure is and it's hard to see from this angle. But when you look from the top, okay, you want your head pin to be straight. So you don't want to have it pushed back like this where it's going on an angle, because then your loop's going to be angled. So you want it to be straight, so it's coming out, it's in a straight line here. So I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to push those beads up against that piece. I'm going to make sure it's straight. So I actually think I like to look at it from the top when I do it to make sure it's straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and start pressing down. It'll cut the excess. It'll make my loop. And then I straighten out my loop a little bit, or I'm sorry, I straighten out the charm. Before I release, I want to straighten it out. So I kind of push it a little bit until when I look at it from this way here, that I see that the loop is straight. Okay, and so once I've adjusted that and I lift it up, then we're done. So you can see that the loop is a little open there. And so all you need to do is, if you're going to be putting this on something right away and you need an open loop, you can go ahead and do that now. But if you're going to be putting it on a loop that is open, so you don't need an open loop here, you can then take your pliers and just clamp down to close up that loop, like so. Okay, so it is loose. These beads are a little loose, but when you hang it from a chain or from a hoop or an ear wire, it lays very nicely. They'll lay straight and up against the glass. So that's all you need to do. So I'll go ahead and make a couple more with you. I'll make a set. So I'm going to take another color. I'm going to insert the head pin like so. And then I'm going to put on 3 spacer beads. And I'm going to grab my 1-step looper. I'm going to go through or go under the pin, go through the hole, push my spacer beads up against this jaw here on the side. Make sure that it's straight and go ahead and clamp down. So then before I release, I adjust to make sure that this is straight. So usually I end up having to kind of push it up a little bit, and you'll be able to see better with your own eyes, but I make sure it looks straight before I release it. Okay, and then once I'm happy with that, I release it. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just close it like that. Okay, and sometimes, you know, depending on how straight that pin was in the looper, you might need to adjust and straighten out the loop a little bit. But the straighter you get it while you loop it, the less you'll have to adjust. Okay, let's do another one. So we're gonna just put on our bead here, grab 3 spacers, or if you prefer 2, grab our 1-step looper tool, go under the pin and through the hole, and push up against this side of the jaw. Straighten it out, and then go ahead and loop. And then I'm going to straighten it out before I release. And then you can go ahead and release it. And this one has gotten pretty tightly closed already. And there we go. Okay. And then I'll do one more. Go ahead and put this on. Pick up your spacer beads. Grab your one-step looper. Make sure that's straight in there. So it's kind of how you want it to be lined up. And then loop and straighten out before you release. And then release. Okay. And if you're not going to be needing an open loop here, you can go ahead and close that. Okay. So there you have it. There you have your charms. You can make each charm within seconds using this method, as opposed to wrapping with wire, which is also an option, and that looks great. But this is a fun, quick way to make these beautiful Christmas light charms. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you.